When I was having this talk, I was just thinking this to myself, just rambling, and I was just thinking, I thought to myself like, as a black man, I felt like just the day, and I guess for me, let me put preferences also. I'm not a regular black man. I don't, and I say that to myself because not with my, I'm an awkward person. You know, I'm not very good at conversing, uh, and I can be coming off as quite submissive and quite agreeable and just a kind of passive. I try my best to be a bit more forward and a bit more positive and optimistic, but yeah, my demeanor and all that stuff doesn't come across as like traditionally or stereotypically masculine. You know, I think I just come off as just this. I want to say anomaly, and I don't even want to say I'm not like other dudes. I'm just. I say that maybe to my disadvantage because I'm like, you know, what you perceive is, your first impressions. What you see, which is what you get, almost. And sometimes for me, that's not the case. I don't believe that's the case. I don't even want that to be the case. I want people to, when they see me, hey, let me talk to them. I might want to I want to have a friendly disposition, but uh, I just want to be able to you know, talk to me and see what I'm about. And I'm definitely open to do the same. Um, but I say that just as a person, just thinking to myself like, yo, I feel like in the dating market, black people, and from my perspective, I can't speak on behalf of black women, but I can speak on behalf of myself as a black man, especially in Christians, and that's something I gotta say. But before I say that, I don't feel like this is very, very viable in the market for black men. Um, Now, for me and myself, I'm not that independent at the moment, and I'm trying to get there. I'm 28, and I should be having my degree, but I don't. So I'm still in the process of doing so. I gotta. I work at Amazon and stuff, so I hate. I'm sorry, I'm bringing it up, but currently as of this time, I'm working at Amazon, and it's paying me pretty great. Strangest thing I keep hearing is that people, again, I had a friend who worked at Amazon, but in my experience, Amazon has always been pretty good to me. And I've worked at both sides, the fulfillment side and the sortation side. They've been pretty decent. The time where I first messed up at the fulfillment side, that was like because of a thing that happened with me internally. I had a surgery. It was a laparotomy. Had I guess a rotted part of my intestine removed when I was younger, and the scar tissue did something, and it messed with my stomach. I was feeling this pulsating pain. Um, but why did I talk about this? I, I'm sorry. I'm on a train, and I'm training thought, and I'm just following the train until I get back to where I need to go. So I don't know why people complain about Amazon. Amazon's pretty great, in my opinion. I've worked a lot worse. Let's just say that I've worked just too many jobs that were just stressful, that was worse, that didn't care about no union. And one of the things about Amazon is that there was a union that was trying for Amazon, and the union fell apart because they couldn't get people because people were happy with the status that they were in. You get benefits. I'm sorry, this isn't a promo for Amazon or nothing like that. I just appreciate what I've been given from the company. Um, you know, it sucks they give you a little, like a percentage, like a single digit percentage as an employee. You get a little discount, but that's it. A percentage, you might get $1 off of your total purchase, which is not all that much. But the benefits other companies wouldn't give. They have when people say competitive pay, they might be talking 14, maybe $12, maybe $10, and we just not getting stuff at McDonald's for $15. And people kept fighting over that with a bunch of bullshit. But yeah, I just say the Amazon's been pretty good to me. So that's just my status. I've been taking care of my bills, taking care of debt, just the whole nine. I've just been super appreciative of working here. I just wish I could work at a closer place at a sortation center. Uh, Unfortunately, there's gonna be at a fulfillment center nearby, so I'm gonna just have to rock with that one if when that finally gets built up around me. But just I'm not really like the independent where I want to be, and but I'm getting there. And I just find us to be so in a bad shape in the dating market. We just not we're not very favored like that, you know. And some women are interested, and some of them aren't, and for me, I feel like personally, as not just as a black man but just as a man in general, is that it takes both people to be with somebody, to be in a relationship. It shouldn't take one person really wanting to be with you, or you want to really be with that other person, and he or she is just not interested. And then, but oh, you want to be so bad in this relationship. And the same thing goes for if a woman wants to be with you in a relationship. She wants to so bad. She's just moping around, and she's crying, and yada yada yada. That does not give you any license to be with her. It doesn't. I'm sorry, I do have to tell you that. Because I feel like there's that also that double standard. Like, if a girl really likes you and her friends like, yo, she like you, and you know, you shouldn't feel any pressure to be with anybody. You know, you should be with a person because you want to be with them. And I'm not. And you can talk about the whole your standards, and if they're healthy and if they're realistic, that's another topic. But what I'm saying is, if there's somebody who's and also figure out what you like. But like, I'm sorry, you should never feel guilty about being with somebody. You should never feel pressure into being with somebody. I gotta see that, because I'm like, it just it just in my experience, it just breeds resentment, and you just don't want to be in it. And for me, I got my own problems, like commitment issues, and you know as I said in the previous video about my rent, just like had some fetishism. Um and sometimes that makes me think, like, just as a black man, like living as a minority in America, we see these images all the time. And again, for me, I claim it's brainwashing. I know people don't count that as an excuse, but like, I'm sorry, forgive me. Like, in a male-dominated society, uh, when you see a bunch of images on movies, all this other stuff. Again, I've been exposed to black movies, which I I don't think the majority of white population, at least with YouTubers, I keep seeing when they show black movies, they say, "Oh, that's weird," you know. But like, I've been exposed to many movies with majority of white cast, if not if just wholly white. These days you might have a necessary minority in there, but you have a white cast, and I'm like, I'm 28. I've been inundated with constant images of, oh, the girl next door, the manic pixie dream girl, the not like other girls, the yada yada yada, all these other type of tropes and females, like Ramona Flowers from Steve Pilgrim versus the World, or Walter Mitty. I think the girl was Kristen Wiig. The Smiths with it wasn't Leonardo DiCaprio. It was Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. They said, "Oh, she's so exotic. Look at her lips." I'm like, black women naturally they tend to have thicker lips, but you don't see them getting any praise for their lips. It's just living in America, especially as a minority. And I had to check this. Black people are about what, 17 or 14%, while white people are about 70%. That aren't, from what I can tell, aren't Latino, like white Latinos. Which from what I guess is Spanish related, but yeah, and I'm like, it blew my mind because I didn't know that. I knew there was more black whites than there were. I I think my initial thought was like, there probably was just as many blacks as there was whites, but it's like, or maybe a little bit more whites, but because I was thinking like the influx of the Mexican population just kind of offset that, but no, whites still remain to be the majority people in the country. Sorry, the country, and that's surprising. That's very surprising. Just think about that. That's 70%. That's 70%. So I'm like, how is that? And then you see like Asians and stuff. You know what? I had another thought for Asians, and that's not even about all the details about how they integrate with my culture or black culture, but don't want black men or don't prefer black women. I don't know about the black women part, but I know definitely about the black men part. They don't prefer no black men. In their older cultures, they don't prefer black men. You know, it's the weirdest thing I've ever heard of, and sometimes they don't even prefer their own people. They prefer whites. But and I know people want to sit here and have irritation about that, but I'm like, it's true. I've seen some videos. Okay, I've seen a video about a woman saying, I can't date this Asian dude because he reminds me of my brother. And I'm like, but you can date a white dude, no problem. I've seen plenty of white Asian folks who's dating white people, and I have no problem with dating them, with people dating races. But if people have a certainty, a trend of dating certain people, it's not just your personality. I'm sorry, it's not just your personality. It's got to be subconscious things that draw you to that person. You know, where a white dude can be just Joe Schmo, not doing nothing, or he could just be doing nothing with his life. And Asians like, oh yeah, yeah, I want to date that guy. You know, and I'm like, yo, it wasn't black people who put them through the minority thing, the model minority thing. It wasn't necessarily black people calling them gooks or chinks or whatever. I'm like, maybe in comedians, because I'm like, I've definitely seen black comedians make fun of them, but I'm like, yo, if white people are the majority, chances are you're gonna have a lot of more white people talking about Asians than there are blacks. But that's just me rambling. I'm sorry. Let me get back to my topic. I just find it so troubling, uh, just being a minority sometimes, because white people like to tell you we're all equal, there's no problem, but I'm like, no, there's very clearly, as in my experience as a minority, there is a white preference. I know people say white privilege. I like to say white preference because that's how, with those nuances, with those social things, those social advantages that whites seem to have, and whites could just do anything. It's like why you have Becky's and Karens, where you have the Becky's who just seems clueless and naive and just nonsensical about everything, and then you have the entitled Karen who's just angry about everything, and they don't seem like they are satisfied, and they always want to go to somebody's manager because they're unsatisfied with service. It's because the Becky turns into Karens, you know, and I get it. It's offensive, you know, but it's like it's a paradigm in America, unfortunately, that shows like this sense of entitlement. And again, it's kind of like pretty privilege. If nobody tells you no, if nobody lets you know where you are in this place, and enforce authority over you, you'll think you're the authority yourself. You'll think you'll have entitlements. It's like narcissism. If nobody told you no, or like being a single child. If nobody told you no, and they just babied you all the time, and they gave you everything you wanted, they didn't tell you no, you're gonna come with a sense of entitlement. Same thing happens with child actors, child stars. They've been given everything, so they have this expectation when they grow up that's just the normal for them, and is true. It can be true. And so I'm just saying, like, with this nighttime session, I'm not gonna force people to sit here and critically think about it. I think everybody should be a critical thinker. That'd be important, to be like, to not just go off the whim of your society, but you know, when people say they want that, I learned this from Dr. Ramani, when she was saying how it could have been Dr. Ramani, it could have been somebody else, but pretty sure it's Dr. Ramani, when she was saying like when you feel that connection to somebody, it's like it's essentially familiarity. You know, oh, I feel like I feel we vibe. It's like, no, these are subconscious things that your mind has already previously collected from previous relationships, and not just romantic ones. These are mutual ones, and a sense of familiarity. That's that spark that people talk about. Oh, I feel something. Well, yeah, you feel your body just might be subconsciously taking in that this seems similar, you know, and therefore you get comfortable, because people, when you put yourself in similar a comfortable position, it's not really different, it's not very challenging, it's what you're used to, you know, and that could be whatever, you know, You might meet a military person. You might say there's a spark. Maybe trail into your time in the military, or maybe your military family. But it's not just a definite. People change, and people might want the opposite and whatever. Like people's life and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, just things that happen within us. But I just don't understand that. And it sucks because I'm like, I don't know what I grew up I grew up in my formative years within when I was like, what, 14, I think 15, maybe 16, 14. I know it was definitely 14, but it's like could have been a little earlier in that. In that, I grew up in Wisconsin, and it was a majority white place, you know. And it's unfortunate, I felt like my brother got better, but I could be wrong because he's experiencing currently what racism is about. He's living around a, I'm not gonna say a majority white community, but he when he goes to certain places that's majority white, they tend to treat him kind of funny, and he's experienced that, and that's, to me, that's racism, like, because he just want to hang out and just enjoy their company. But he noticed that they kind of weird. They distance themselves from him. He's not even being shown a threatening personality, you know. And yes, and like yes, he's a, and I hate kind of bringing this up because I thought about it and I'm like, this shouldn't be a reason why people should judge you or criticize you. I'm like, if somebody clearly shows you some aggression, then you respond. But just because my brother's a big person, because he is a big person, he's not like, oh, super fat, but he's like a big person. He could, if he could be a bodyguard, he could. Um, and you know, it's weird to me because you got big people all the time. What, Chris Farley? Chris Farley was bigger than him, and he was a lovable person. And that dude was addicted to drugs. Um, but he was, I guess he was just loved because he was a person who owned his body. He's a fat person. He was overweight. But he used to make these jokes and stuff, and people, I'm pretty sure people made fat jokes about him too. But he would just make these jokes, and Jack Black is probably bigger than him, but I guess that's another thing. I guess with a part of beauty privilege, or it's not even beauty privilege, but just like that privilege to people and their images. Like, and again, I can't say I'm fat. I don't think I'm fat, but I don't carry that confidence on me. And I feel like the stereotype for black men is that they're confident, they have style, they have swagger. And my brother, I believe he has the style and the swagger, and he's a big dude. So I don't know what kind of combo that makes. I don't know if that comes off as intimidating. I don't think it should. Ironically, I don't think it should because people if that's a stereotype, then that should be like aphrodisiac. People should like that. If you come off as big and strong and you got swag, then this could be like, you know, people will gravitate to you, because I know they don't gravitate to me because, especially when I was thinner, I was really thinner, and I definitely used to face like ridicule from people, or just nasty looks, or just like people being standoffish, and I just had to roll with it and just try to better myself regardless. And it wasn't like that stuff didn't hurt because it did. But when I got bigger, those dirty looks didn't come as much. Those weird actions, that negativity didn't come as much. I learned to just be a little bit more hard and have a little edge to myself, and just to maneuver in the outside, not be so friendly. Whenever I was in Wisconsin, I used to be very, very friendly because people there were very, very friendly. A random stranger could talk to you and just chop it up with you for no reason. And when I brought that to Chicago, it was something I really had to break, and something I sometimes I still have a problem with because I give people the benefit of the doubt and I talk to them, but sometimes they do not want to talk to you, if not for very long. Unless they trying to talk to you to smash, to have sex, or I was gonna say the other thing. I might say it, but I don't know. But unless they're trying to just have sex, they're not trying to talk to you very long, you know. And some people are not even in that environment, and they're open to talk to you. You know, they're might be a bit more open, might be a bit more mature, but yeah, they're not gonna really be in that type of mode that, and in my opinion, I say it's hyper masculinity because you know you don't talk, you're not vulnerable. You have to defend yourself, and you have to be tough. And there ain't no resources around, so the only thing y'all fight for is status. So, you know, it's just, jeez, my ear. So it's like the only thing y'all fighting for is, sorry, the only thing y'all fighting for is status. Clean my ears, but but yeah, I guess it's just, it's unfortunate, man. I know people tell you it's just about your confidence level, and maybe it is, but it don't stop the fact that people, when they see you and they don't give you a chance, a fair shake, and it's not just for me, you know, being awkward and stuff, like, you know, that stuff can be, I can learn how to be you know, a better speaker and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, those other elements that come through, that's not, that don't have to do with your performance and how you talking, your style and the confidence and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just those things that's like, that's out of your control. You know, I didn't have a choice to be black, just like white people didn't have a choice to be white. You know, it's just their parents, you know, had sex and they birthed you, and you didn't have a choice about what eye color you have, what skin you have, what texture or coarseness of hair you have. You don't. You don't have no choice in that matter. You just are exist. You just alive, you know. And they took care of you, and you just run with it, you know. And the fact that people judge you by that, people have presuppositions to you by that, you know. People, and again, within my life, I'm a very patient person. I like to believe, not all the time, especially around people I know. I can be impatient around them, but around strangers, I'm very patient, and I'm a good listener. I've listened to I've let's just say I've gone to listen to people for lengths on it, out for about hours on it. Let's just say that. And in my experience as a passive black man, whenever I've talked with white individuals, always talked to them, and they have always been the initiators who told me about race or politics or whatever nonsense. They have always been that person, you know. And I think it's because I'm a passive person, because I come off as non-threatening, come off as uh, uh stereotypically unassuming and stuff like that, which is so messed up. Because again, if we want to sit here and say we're all the same and all that extra stuff, you need to be about your words, and not sit here and make that a lie. You know, if you really are about your words, if you really do care about people, and you say we're all the same, then really treat people the same. And don't, especially when you're in the cop force, when you see people, and black people specifically, you know, people that you don't know, people who aren't your friends, eat your words and say, hey, we are the same. Not, I'm in a foreign place, and if you try to put your hands on them and they react, oh, I got scared. No, because we aren't. We are the same humanity, but in terms of our culture and our culture expressions is different. When you put your hands on black people, or rather from what I can understand in the hood, in parts in the hood, not every hood is the same, but they're dangerous areas, and so you have similar reactions. It's a dangerous area. People aren't trying to be vulnerable. People aren't trying to be intimate or hold hands or anything, or touch each other, or even in any sense of just like any contact, physical contact. So when a police officer put their hands on people who are already culturally conditioned to not receive any kind of touch that's not their family, that's not their significant other, then they respond and they react. They will probably react like that with any other person because that's just their culture. And again, that's just my perspective from what I've been looking at, and from my experience being in and talking with people who've been around that paradigm. They don't like conversation like that unless it's their friends who talk like them. They can be pretty intolerant to people who don't look and act and do things like them. And so if a police officer who's definitely not like them will put their hands on them, talk to them any kind of way, they'll say whatever to get out of that situation. They don't care. And I don't know. I don't even know if they don't care, but I don't know. I don't think they care. I don't even think they care about really anything the police have to say. They just care about survival. Doing what they have to do, getting by. And I know people will sit here and want to defend, but I'm like, listen, if any of you guys been to the hood and have had a black suburbanite mentality or thought or speech pattern or whatever, they will talk over you. They will show you some aggression like, yo, why are you here? I don't want you around here. And then if you have black family over there, they'll know if you're a black suburbanite, hey, come around, come with me. Don't hang out here by yourself. They know a sucker when they see one. They know a person who's weak who will be taken advantage of when they see one. And so it's like you either put on a hard front or you just stay away from them. And I just mentioned all that stuff because I'm like, yo, when these cops out here just act like they can do whatever and think the law is just gonna protect them from being culturally ignorant, it's just stupid to me. It's just incredibly arrogant, incredibly ignorant for them to be out here and just say, hey, we're gonna just take your badge, or no, we're gonna put our hands on you. It's just culturally foolish for you to think if you put your hands, if you try to apprehend these people, that they're not gonna react, given the aspect of their culture. Then I'm sorry, I just mentioned it because I'm like, when people want to sit here and say we all bleed the same and all this stuff, all this tone deaf, culturally blind nonsense, because that's what it is. Because white people love to tell you how culturally uninhibited everyone Americans is, and that's not true. America is full of people who are different, but that doesn't mean that everybody who have different cultures share that same culture. You have the general culture of America, and you have, like, for instance, a bilingual person. He could be Arabic, he could be Mexican, he could be Latino, he could be whatever, but they'll always go back to their culture. They might speak their language, and then they'll talk to you in English. They'll speak their language, and then they'll act like you. They have it's almost like that dual consciousness that W.B. Du Bois was talking about. Black people have that double consciousness, but I feel like every person, particularly like you, maybe if they're white, maybe if they're first generation, sorry, my ear's been giving me such problems. Yeah, for them, maybe some of these people who are first generation, they may be more connected to their culture, but the more generations further on will integrate even further into American culture and will become more Americanized, to the point where they will perhaps abandon their culture and become fully American. I don't know that for certain, but it just seems to be the thing that tends to happen. They stop learning the language. They just start being a bit more Americanized. So, so, I guess that's it, man. I don't even know what I'm gonna I don't know what I'm gonna title this. I just wish people. I just feel like if we really are different, and I get it, in these day and age, we're just trying to fight for freedom and trying to fight to be heard because really the peaceful route has been tried like to ad nauseum, and so I definitely get it when they riot and they just wild out because what else are they gonna do? They already tried being peaceful. They already tried negotiating, and that didn't seem to work, including for the leader. So I'm like, a leader at the time, they just didn't want to listen no more. You know, they just spazzed out. So how else you gonna what's a man to do when you keep pushing him to the ledge? Be peaceable while you fall off the ledge? No, he's gonna do fight or flight. He's gonna wild out, or he's gonna try to run away. And we can't run away. Where's our safe space? Where's our cultural hub? Like immigrants, they go to their Chinatown, their Greek town, Jew town. They go to their communities. We don't have that. We've been constantly battered down. We don't go to the hood. You know, we were given weapons and crack in our community, and people keep. I'm like, you can say you don't believe that, but remember Gary Webb? He the one who exposed the CIA for sending crack, sending literal cocaine, little crack, to what was it, the Sandinistas versus the Nicaraguans, like sending them in a anti-communist goal ambition, and then what some black people were working with him like the real Rick Ross, Freeway, was talking about it. They were sending this crack, you know, sending the what was it? It could have been Sandinistas, no, it could have been the Nicaraguans, and then they sold it back to us because the government was neglecting us, and then we sold it to our communities, you know. And again, like even with the Black Panther Party, not everybody's perfect, but at least they were trying to help the community, and sorry, but at least they were trying to defend their communities, and they were demonized. You see how every gun-loving American like wielded showing off their weapon, but a white American particularly, you know, but yeah, there's other Americans, but let me just stop. Just that's it. That's it. Uh, Being a minority is hard, man. And yes, life is unfair, and that shouldn't stop you from practicing personal responsibility. But racism's still out there, and that racial preference for white people is still out there in the dating world, in the living world, and I mean living like just your daily living world, just in everything, man. And I'm just like, we need to either get our own community that is healthy practicing, that is self-loving, that's healthy, that's that's practicing good mindfulness, and just build, you know. And if white people want to sit here and complain about shit, just tell them them complaining and saying, what if we had a white only thing? What if we had a white only thing? I'm like, that's redundant because you clearly do. You have it. If you're the majority culture, of course, you have it. You know, I get pissed off when I hear about that. Like, when people keep saying, oh, well, what if we had a white only? I'm like, you do. Just because you have a token minority character in shows don't mean that you don't have a white only type deal. In terms of your media, your content, you know? And people I get sick of these people when they talk about multiculturalism being a crime. I'm like, multiculturalism isn't a crime. When you bring, for instance, like the thing with Britain and like them people from the Muslim in countries, and they and came in there as refugees, and now they started their own laws. That's not the problems of multiculturalism. That's a problem with a certain people group that do not desire to follow the laws of the land in which they're moving to, in which they're being refugees to. That is not a total of refugees. I mean, a total of multiculturalism. You see multiculturalism with Japan, with the Brazilians, when Japanese folks were going to Brazil and they had children, and they stayed there and they had children, and then the children tried to come back to Japan, and I think they only let like the Japanese people there, the Japanese like descendants. Uh, but even then, I think they had problems with that too, because I think it had to do like third generation or something like that. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. It's just so much stuff to talk about. It's just you can't tell me that like things aren't unfair. And I'm not saying that like, yo, we have to have a utopia, because that's not possible with human beings. We're just too messy. But I am saying that like, open your eyes, like, you know, and no, and sometimes that's hard because people do treat white people different. You know, myself, I tend to do this too. You know, because I recognize that black culture can be sometimes a little standoffish to people who don't look like them or act like them or talk like them. I might gravitate toward white people because sometimes they're a little bit nicer. But again, I learned that white people are just as messy. You know, because some of them will get political on you, talk to you about race when you didn't initiate it. You know, they say, "Oh, you're one of the safe black dudes," or you're not like the other black dudes." You know, it's like I'm still black. You know, I still have to live as a black person. You know, uh, yeah, just like man, I just wish white people would just have a clear sight, a clear vision of what it means, man, to be like a minority, to not have your likeness in media all the time, to be a outsider, to not even be preferred, you know, in your dating culture, to be seen as to have people to be so broken in their to be so broken in an environment that doesn't represent or preference them, that they may have white people not bleaching their skin, but brown in their skin. You know, and you can say, yeah, that's happening today, but I'm like, no, it's not. It's not in that same vein. It's a that the tannin stuff is just, I don't know what it is. What is it? Political? No, I don't think it's political. A trend? I think it might be a trend, but I don't think it's like they hate themselves, so they're tanning because they hate their whiteness. Some of them do because they, compared to their friends, they're the palest one of the group, so they get a little darker, maybe to help their self esteem. But it's not the same thing with black people when they bleach their skin. You know, you could tell when a black person bleaches their skin because the colors on the pigments on their face versus their lips or the rest of their body or their hands or whatever is different. They don't really match up, and it's not just that they don't match up. They just don't look they don't look natural. But yeah, I just wish white people would see that, you know. But there's 70% of them, and they don't really care to see. It's the same thing with some people religion. They don't really care to see what other religions are about. They just want to have their religion. And for Americans, they just want to keep their Christian white America, God loving, country loving, gunslinging white America. And they may not say that because their past generations have been teaching them to not be openly racist, which they think is just being racist, but it's just openly racism versus their ethnocentrism. That is essentially covert racism. You know, they prefer their own. It's ethnocentrism. You know, and I used to be a person who was about ethnocentrism, and I'm not. You know. Um, all right, I'm good. That's it.